When you stepped outside today, did you feel what I felt? Could you smell it? It wasn't overwhelming, it didn't hit you in the face, but the underlying whisper of fall was in the air this morning. And that only means one thing. Football is back. The wait is over. It's been a long year, my friends, but football is back. The NFL is back. College football is actually back this weekend, which means the Bacon Bets podcast is back in your life. Today's episode, of course, we're not starting the Road to 272 yet. We will be doing the Road to 272 in a couple of weeks, but today's episode will be my season preview for this year's NFL action. As always, I'm going to be breaking down my 32 bets for 32 teams, which is my best futures bet for all 32 teams in the entire NFL. I already wrote my article for this, so you might have already actually read through my picks, my futures for this NFL season, but I'm going to dive into those a little bit deeper. I didn't go too deep into that article for each pick. It would have taken me a week to write. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into those picks, and this is just going to be my overall season preview. So that's what's to come, but I got a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit of catching up with you guys to do before we get into it. So if you're just here for the picks, check out the timestamp in the description below, and you can jump forward right to those. This is the first episode of the Bacon Bets podcast I've recorded now, I think since the Masters was the last one that I recorded. It's been a little while. This has been a hectic year for me. In March, obviously, I moved from New York back to Canada. I'm now in Toronto, back in my home country. This is my first time that I've been living in Toronto, though. But not only that, I also got married this summer, so it has been an extremely busy year, which has prevented me from doing this podcast at all for the summer. Usually I like to do at least an episode for each major tournament of the golf year. I did the Masters, and then I just kind of had to put the podcast on the back burner while I got married. I went out to the East Coast. I traveled a little bit, took some time off, but we're back. And football's back. The Bacon Bets podcast is not going anywhere, but there are going to be some changes. There's going to be a little bit of an update for this year's NFL action. Number one, I am doing a new show with Sports Illustrated that I'm extremely excited for. I cannot give you any more details than that for now. Keep an eye on social media. It should be next week. That little teaser will be released, and I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. So my main thing this NFL season is going to be that show. I can tell you it is going to be Monday to Friday. That is the plan. So that is going to be a big change for me this football season. I will still be doing the Road to 272, though. That will live on this podcast, the Bacon Bets podcast. That will be, as I've done at least last year, I think the past 2 years now, that'll be recorded every Monday night. The good news is I have no plans for this football season. I'm locked in. I'm not going anywhere whatsoever. So I will not be missing any episodes of that at all. My vacation, unfortunately, my traveling is over. My busy season starts right now and goes until the end of the Super Bowl. And it's going to be a busy year for me. So that'll be recorded every Monday night. The rules for the Road to 272 are going to adjust a little bit. I still need to finalize some things here in the last couple of weeks. But I'll go over those rules for the Road to 272 for the first episode, which will be released, of course, the first week of the NFL season, which will be what? September 2nd. That'll probably be released. Maybe I might have for September 1st because the season kicks off there September 4th. Last year, I added the player prop countdown where I did a second episode every week where I counted down my best player props for that week's NFL action. I don't know if I'm going to do that this year or not, to be completely honest. I'm going to be fairly busy with this Sports Illustrated show. I will at the very least have an article of the player prop countdown, a written version of it. Whether or not I'm going to have the time to record this podcast for the player prop countdown is we'll have to kind of see how that goes the first couple of weeks. But I can tell you at least you will, I guarantee it, get an episode of the Road to 272 every single week. That'll be recorded Monday night and released Tuesday mornings. Back by popular demand, by the way, I need to let you know, is the Survivor Pool. We ran it last year. I forget who won it. Whoever won it, congratulations to you. I don't have your name in front of me. But we're back doing it again this year. check out the link in the description of this podcast, either the audio version or on YouTube, and you can click that to sign it up. I'll also tweet it out as well. If you don't have access to the description of this podcast, I will tweet out that link, obviously, a handful of times between now and when the season kicks off. If you haven't played Survivor before, it's easy. You pick one team every single week to win the game. Doesn't have anything to do with point spreads. They just need to win. If that team wins, you advance to the next week. The trick is obviously you can only use one team once each year. So if you use the Ravens one week and they win, you can't use them again for the rest of the season. This year's buy-in, I forget what my buy-in was last year. I think maybe it was $25. This year it's going to be $30 is going to be the buy-in. You are also allowed up to 3 entries per person. 200 total entries is going to be the limit. If we get less than that, then we'll just roll with that. If we reach 200, then it'll be completely blocked off, obviously. If for some reason I get a ton of entries early and it fills up, then I'll open up a second one. But for right now, I'm just going to do one Survivor pool, 200 people max, or I should say 200 entries max, up to 3 entries per person, and it'll be $30 per entry. It's just winner take all. There's nothing for second place, third place, fourth place, unless more than one person lasts all 18 weeks, then the pot will be divided amongst you. And it's being run on Splash Sports, and I believe Splash takes away, I think, 5% of the entry fees. So if it's $30, if we get all 200 people, that'd be it'd be $6,000. But yeah, they take out 5%, so they take out $300 of that. So the winner would take home, if they are the individual winner. Last year's was the individual winner. It did last all 18 weeks. The winner would take home $5,700. So also, you don't even have to click a link. You can just go to Splash Sports. It's the Road to 272 Survivor is the name of it. You'll see it there. What else is going on here before we get into the picks? I know some people cared about this, probably not many. Last year I ran the New York Marathon, the New York City Marathon. This year I was going to do it again. I was going to go back to New York and run it in November. Last year I was pretty quiet. I mentioned it a few times on the podcast about it, but I didn't really do any videos or any content related to the me training for the marathon and me running it. This year I decided to do that. And of course, because this is how the way things work, 3 or 4 weeks into my training, I recorded a weekly video each week. 3 or 4 weeks into it, I hurt my ankle, which kept me off training for a little bit. And then that led right into me going out east for my wedding, and it just completely killed my training. So, of course, the year that I decided to create some content, I put myself out there saying I was going to do it. Things have not gone my way, so I will not be doing the New York City Marathon this year. I do have a 1 year. I'm allowed to defer it. I have a 1 year deferral for this year's New York City Marathon entry, so I am actually going to defer to next year. I have to run it next year. If I don't run it next year, then that's it. My entry's gone. So I've actually already started getting back into running training for next year's marathon, but I'm not going to do probably not going to do content because I feel like I cursed myself trying to do it this time around. So if you're wondering, I know a few of you were watching those videos through the first 3 or 4 weeks. Now I haven't uploaded any since. It's because I got hurt and then I got married and my training completely fell off. But I'm back. And now the bright side of it is I have 14 months now to train for instead of just 2 months, because I would not be able to get ready for a marathon by November 3rd or whatever it is. It's just too short of a period of time. By the time I recovered from the ankle injury, by the time I got home after my wedding and all that stuff, it was just not going to happen. Let's get into it. 32 bets for 32 teams. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to be recording this podcast again. I feel like I've kind of grown through this podcast. I remember the first year I did the road, and back then it was 256, I think, before they added week 18. This is it must be year 6 of it, I think. I think it's year 6 doing this. I'm getting old, man. 32 years old this time. By the time the road to 272 this time around is done, I'll be 33. I'm married now. I live in Toronto. I lived in Halifax the first year I did it. Then I lived in New York the next few years. Now I'm in Toronto. This is my 3rd location doing it. We're getting old together, my friends. But I appreciate you coming back, listening, tuning in again this year. Like I said, big show with Sports Illustrated this season. I'll have more details out next week, but please support that and check that out and watch that. That'll be great, but I'll have more details about that starting next week, the week before the start of the NFL season. But let's get into it. 32 teams, 32 bets. I'm going to go through it alphabetical. Let's get into it. The 2025 NFL season is finally here. Let's go. All right, we're going to go alphabetical here. So that means we are starting with the Arizona Cardinals this season. I'm going to fade. This might be the exact same bet I placed on Arizona last year. I'm going to fade the Cardinals this season. Under 8.5 wins. And by the way, all these bets for the 32 bets for 32 teams, they can be anything. A lot of win totals is going to be the most popular, but there's a Super Bowl bet in there. There's even individual bets in there, season-long player prop bets. So it can be really any type of bet for the team or a player on the team. For the Cardinals, I'm keeping it simple. I'm going under 8.5 wins, plus 105. I'm going to let you guys know where I bet these. This was at Caesars. Also, I placed these bets. The story was published on August 3rd, so it's coming up on 3 weeks ago now. The odds might be slightly different, but I don't think any of them will be drastically different. If the price is different and you want to know if I'd still bet at the new price, just send me a DM on Twitter. I didn't want to go through and write down what all the current odds for all these are, to be completely honest. I have bet all these at the prices I've listed as of less than 3 weeks ago. So Cardinals under 8.5 plus 105. Cardinals did nothing this offseason. They're just kind of just rolling it back with the same quarterback, the same coach. Did they make any changes offensively or defensively? I don't really think so. Nothing really significant. And I think I'm now officially out on Kyler Murray. I know the narrative around him, and when we're going to get to bets throughout the season, we should probably bet the Cardinals early in the year. That's when Kyler Murray's at his best. As the season goes on, he gets beat up a little bit. And also, we know that he doesn't watch film. This has now come out about him. We know that about him at this point. So when you don't watch film, that's going to become more apparent as the season goes on. And as other teams, as his opponents start to watch film on him and he doesn't watch film on them to adjust, he gets worse as the season goes on. But last year they went 8-9, so they would have to improve on their record last year for the over to hit. And I don't think they did enough to do that. The 49ers, I think, are going to bounce back to the NFC West. That's bad news for them. That division as a whole is pretty tough. Their schedule is certainly not the easiest schedule in the NFL, so I don't think they're going to improve on last year's record, and you can get the under at 8.5 at plus money at Caesars, plus 105. So Cardinals under 8.5 wins. Some of these bets, by the way, obviously going to have more to say than others. Some of them will be pretty quick. Some of them I'll dive into them a little bit deeper. This one, I like that we go alphabetical so we can get my biased pick out of the way early. It's the same bet I've placed on my Atlanta Falcons for 7 years since the last time they made the playoffs, which they lost in the divisional round to the Eagles on a Julio Jones drop pass in the end zone on the last play of the game. They have not cashed for me yet, but I'm telling you, this is the year that the Atlanta Falcons get back to the playoffs. It fucking has to be. So much is working in favor for this team. I actually tweeted out a poll yesterday asking people if the Falcons were overrated, underrated, or properly rated. The majority of votes were either on overrated or properly rated. Nobody thinks they're underrated, despite their win totals like 7.5. Michael Penix is the truth. Did he not do enough for you in the last handful of games last season to tell you that he's going to be a good quarterback? We know that he's got the weapons. You know, there's no questions about that. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, obviously. So the offensive weapons are there. He has a top 5 offensive line. Chris Lindstrom is arguably the best guard in the NFL. Defensively is what cost us last year. But we've improved. We fired Jimmy Lake. We brought in Jeff Ulbrich. And obviously we had no pass rush. So what did the Falcons do? They used 2 first-round picks on pass rushers, and they signed Leonard Floyd from the 49ers. So the pass rush has to be better. I still have some concerns about the secondary. I would have liked to see them really sign a really solid number 2 corner. They didn't. They have a lot of depth issues in the secondary. But we have now Penix in a full season behind a top 5 offensive line with a top 3, top 2 running back in the backfield, with a top 10 receiving core, with a new defensive coordinator, with a completely revamped pass rush, and they have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. You're telling me this team can't make the playoffs? Really? Why? I'm not even saying they're going to win the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be a very good team this year. But they can get a wild card spot. Let's not forget last year when Kirk Cousins played like 6 games injured and killed the season for us. The Falcons were in overtime against the Commanders. They beat the Commanders in that overtime game, and then they managed to beat the Panthers in the final week of the season. They're in the playoffs. They can't take half a step forward and actually do it this year? Do you not have faith in Michael Penix? Is that what this is? I do. Penix pride. That's what I'm feeling this season. I'm all in. The penis jokes are coming, and I can't wait. Falcons to make the playoffs, plus 155 at DraftKings. This is the year they get back to the postseason. It has to be. I don't know what it'll do if they don't. Baltimore Ravens are my pick. We're getting this pick out of the way early, too. They're my pick for the Super Bowl this year. Ravens to win Super Bowl 60 at 7-1 at Caesars. Usually my Super Bowl picks are bold because I don't like hearing people say the same thing over and over again. I got a real problem with people in sports media. I've been listening to like NFL preview podcasts. I guess those podcasts that these NFL experts do that are like season previews, I guess they're for people who like don't follow the NFL and during the offseason they don't pay attention whatsoever, because these experts who are paid big money by these big sports media brands say nothing exciting. My Super Bowl pick this year, I think it's going to be a Chiefs-Eagles rematch, and I think the Eagles are going to win again. I know that like the people are too far one way now when it comes to hot takes. Like people just saying things purely for engagement, just to rage bait people. That's annoying. But the answer to that has been everyone saying the most obvious thing possible that no one's going to disagree with. Now, I'm saying all of this with a lower third below me that says Ravens win the Super Bowl, which is certainly not a unique take. But I think what I'm trying to say is I've hated people who do that so much that every year I come in and I give like a 25-1 Super Bowl pick, and then that team like doesn't even make the playoffs. Generally, it's going to be one of the teams near the top of the odds list if the NFL is any indication over the past. I mean, when was the last time a real team out of nowhere made a Super Bowl run? I guess the Bengals a few years ago. They're probably pretty far down the odds list, but then again, they had Joe Burrow. When was the last time like a real no-name team at the start of the season made it to the Super Bowl? I'm trying to think before that. I don't know. I can't. The Cardinals, the year they lost to the Steelers, maybe? My pick is the Ravens. I think they were the best team in the NFL last year. Yes, they fell short to the Bills in the playoffs. Got off to too slow of a start in that game. But they ranked first in net yards per play, plus 1.6. That was 0.6 yards better than any other team in the league. Their roster, already stacked, got better. I like the Malachi Starks draft pick that they got. I think the Ravens are going to be extremely good. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is on there now too. I mean, he's obviously he's not the DeAndre Hopkins of old, but a veteran presence in that receiver room, a reliable target on third downs. I think that's a nice addition for the Ravens. They certainly haven't gotten worse. They probably even took a quarter of a step forward. I think this is the year they get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. I will take them to win the Super Bowl. They are my preseason Super Bowl pick at 7-1. Which brings me to the Buffalo Bills, who are not my Super Bowl pick, but I am going to take the Buffalo Bills to be the AFC's number 1 seed at plus 250 at FanDuel. So I do think the Ravens are going to get the better of maybe the Bills, or maybe the Bills lose to someone else. I think the Ravens are going to end up representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. I have some issues with them being the number one seed, though, just based on schedule difficulty. Number one seed bets are always, you should always be looking at schedule difficulty. The Ravens have obviously a tough division. The Bengals twice a year. The Steelers aren't an easy win. The Browns might be easy wins for them this year, but who knows? The Bills have a significantly easier schedule. The AFC East is a mess right now. I don't know what's going on with the Dolphins. The Jets, I'll get to the Jets in a little bit. The Jets might be actually kind of funny this year, but they're not good. And the Patriots, I don't think, are going to be as good as a lot of people think. Based on opponent projected win totals, the Bills have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL. That's very rare for a team who is playing a first-place schedule to have that easy of a schedule. So I don't think they make the Super Bowl. I think the Ravens are the better team, and I think we'll see that in the playoffs. But based on schedule difficulty, I think the Bills are the number one seed in the AFC. I'll take them to be exactly that at plus 250. The Carolina Panthers, who Bryce Young had a couple of good games at the end of last year. Now all of a sudden people are saying they're a playoff contender. I don't think they're a playoff contender, but I do think they can go over their projected win total. Over 6.5 wins for the Carolina Panthers this season. If Bryce Young can play the way he did over the second half of last season, I think they can hit the over on this win total. Iain MacMillan in the mix now. By the way, McMillans are kind of taking over the NFL. The Buccaneers have a McMillan, don't they? Jalen McMillan. Now there's Iain MacMillan. Don't the Broncos have a DB with the last name McMillan? Shout out to the McMillans. These are all mix, I think, McMillans. We need some MacMillans in there. But shout out to my cousins. But yeah, Panthers actually have a pretty strong receiving core. I think Xavier Legette's being a little bit underrated heading into this year. They still have a lot of question marks on defense, which is why I don't think they're going to be a legitimate playoff contender. I think they're going to once again have one of the worst defenses in the league. But they do have the 6th easiest schedule, so I don't think a 7-10 record is out of the question. Especially 2 games against the Saints this year is going to benefit them. They should probably beat the Saints both those games. They'll definitely be significantly favored against the Saints in both those games. Panthers over 6.5 wins, minus 125 at DraftKings. The Chicago Bears, who are once again being extremely hyped. I saw someone, I forget who it was, someone ranked, said the Bears have a top 10 offense this year. How many times do we have to do this? I correctly called the Bears out for being frauds last season. They were nowhere near the revisionist history about the Bears is crazy. I got an argument with someone on Twitter a couple weeks ago who made the claim that no one said last year that Caleb Williams was going into the best situation a number 1 overall pick has ever been into. That was the exact narrative that was going around by everyone. Oh, watch out for the Bears this year. Their offense is stacked. Number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. Best situation, number 1 overall pick quarterback has ever been in. Didn't go well, did it? Obviously, Ben Johnson should be a little bit of a help there. But I'm actually going to zig instead of zag. There's a bet that I love for the Bears this year, and it's on Caleb Williams. You can find this prop out there. Ooh, there it is. Caleb Williams over 3,525.5 passing yards at minus 114 at FanDuel. Let me look this one up. This was a few weeks ago. Sometimes these player prop ones can change significantly if someone really bets them. Caleb Williams at FanDuel over 3. Oh, this has gone up over 100 yards since I bet it. It's now 3,625. Shop around for that. You might find a better number at a different sports book. I don't know if I love it at 3,625 as opposed to 3,525, but still I'll make my case regardless. Last year, he threw for 3,541 and a half yards. Wait, why did I put in a half? That's no 3,541 yards is what he threw for last year. That's over what his set total was. That is now under his new set total at FanDuel. But still, his total is still right around what he threw last year. Now he has a much more competent head coach in Ben Johnson. He has a revamped offensive line. They stole Drew Dahlman from the Falcons. So I think he is going to take a step forward. Now, is Caleb Williams going to look like the quarterback that everyone wanted him to be? And everyone expected him to be when he was taken number 1 overall? Not yet. Maybe he will get there, but I do think we'll see a much more mature, NFL-looking quarterback version of Caleb Williams this year. I don't know if he'll finally break that curse of the Bears never having a 4,000-yard passer, but I do think he goes over this total, and I don't hate the new number of 3,625. I'm going to say he gets 3,700 this year. There's just enough, especially Ben Johnson is going to make a massive difference as opposed to Eberflus last year, who apparently Caleb Williams was watching film by himself and no coach was even sitting down with him, which is crazy. That's not going to happen with Ben Johnson. All right, I've given you my Super Bowl pick. The next team has my MVP pick for this year. I'm not exactly making a bold claim here, but Joe Burrow, I think, finally wins his first NFL MVP award. Plus 650 at DraftKings is the price point I got him at. He finished 4th in MVP voting last year. Remember, a lot of people kind of had the argument heading down the final stretch of the season that if he was able to drag the Bengals to the playoffs, that the voters were going to give him the MVP award because he was the best pure passer. His passing numbers were better than anyone else last season. Obviously, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have the rushing numbers, the rushing touchdowns that Joe Burrow doesn't have. But from a pure passing standpoint, Joe Burrow was by far the best quarterback in the NFL last year. But one of the big reasons why I like Burrow here is because the voters showed us something last season that we should all take into consideration. And that is voter fatigue is real. Lamar Jackson deserved to be the NFL MVP last year. He had the best season, but he had already had 2 MVPs. He was the MVP the year before. He even won, I believe he was named AP All-Pro Team 1, right? Over Josh Allen. But the MVP voters gave the award to Josh Allen, who, I mean, it wasn't completely, inarguably that he was the MVP, but I certainly thought Lamar Jackson had the better year. But I think a little bit of voter fatigue came into play, which tells me if it's the same top 4 quarterbacks again this year, if it's Lamar, if it's Josh, if it's Mahomes, if it's Joe Burrow, and if the Bengals can make the playoffs, I think that does play a role. If voter fatigue comes into consideration at all, why not give it to the one guy of the 4 who hasn't been named MVP yet? I don't think they'll give it to Josh Allen 2 years in a row. Maybe they go back to Lamar. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a good enough season to truly be in consideration. So that is why I'm going to go with Burrow. He's got T. Higgins back. He's got Jamar Chase back. I really like that he played in the preseason this year. I think that's going to make a big difference. The Bengals got off to bad starts the past number of years. Joe Burrow's gotten off to bad starts over the past number of years. And a big reason they think that happened is because he did not get on the field in the preseason. They changed that this year. He's been playing in the preseason, and he's looked very sharp as well. So if he can get off to a better start, if the Bengals can make the playoffs, I think Joe Burrow, I think it's his year to win NFL MVP. Plus 650 at DraftKings. The Cleveland Browns. This one's easy enough. Let's go under 5.5 wins, minus 145 at FanDuel for the Cleveland Browns. I have no trust in the Browns in any capacity from a betting standpoint this season. Joe Flacco is their quarterback. They have almost no offensive weapons whatsoever. Their defense last season looked like a shell of its former self. They're in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. They got to play the Ravens twice, the Bengals twice, the Steelers twice. That could be 6 losses right there. Under 5.5 wins for the Browns. I have nothing else to say about that team. They're going to be in contention for the number 1 pick in the draft this year. It's going to be bad. Sorry, Browns fans. I have nothing else to say. but you shouldn't be surprised. Dallas Cowboys, I'm going back to a player prop this year. When this trade happened, you'll remember I was pretty vocal about this not being a good trade for either party. It's George Pickens. I'm going to take him under 900.5 receiving yards in his first year as a Dallas Cowboy. This to me just seems like, by the way, that's at FanDuel, and those odds are still accurate. I don't know how this doesn't end in any way but disaster. George Pickens, who was a diva with Pittsburgh because he didn't get the ball thrown to him enough as the number one receiver. He gave up on plays when the ball didn't come to him. He was a cancer in the locker room. That's proven by how little the Steelers got back for him in the trade. Now he goes to Dallas. He has to play second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb. So even if he's able to put his ego aside, I don't know if he's going to get enough looks in the Cowboys offense for him to go over 900.5 receiving yards. It's hard for a team to have two receivers over 1,000 yards in the NFL in today's day and age. So not only do I think he's not going to get enough looks, I also think his ego is going to be an issue. If he didn't feel like he got the ball enough, and that led to off-the-field issues for him in Pittsburgh as the clear number one, what's he going to be like in Dallas now as the number two? I think we've been watching the NFL long enough to know that this is going to end in disaster for both the Cowboys and for George Pickens. Who is the receiver who, like, the former Steelers guy who just bounced around to a few teams and now I don't even know if he's on a team? Deontay Johnston? George Pickens is the next version of that. Chase Claypool, another guy. I don't know why Steelers attract these diva receivers, but they put up with them a bit. They have decent years. They go somewhere else, and then their career falls off. That's what's going to happen to George Pickens. Under 900.5 receiving yards for Pickens, minus 114. The Denver Broncos. A lot of people very high on the Broncos this year. Bo Nix was ranked as the 36th best player or 50th best player or something like that in the NFL this year. I saw Kay Adams say that the Denver Broncos are the most complete team in the NFL. What are we talking about? The Broncos were extremely good defensively. They might have had the best defense in the NFL last year. Their offense was a middling offense. They ranked in the bottom half in both EPA and success rate. Bo Nix was good, but he wasn't like, oh, Bo Nix is now a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He had a promising season for a rookie quarterback who a lot of people didn't believe in. I believed in Bo. I was a Bo believer. But we got to pump the brakes a little bit. The Broncos hype has gotten out of control. Kay Adams, most complete team in the NFL, more complete than the Eagles? What are we talking about? An offense that was a below average unit? Cortland Sutton's their number one receiver? Most complete team in the NFL? The NFL offseason, especially once we get to training camp, people just say crazy things. And they're kind of accepted. People are, oh yeah, the Broncos are going to be good this year. What are we talking about, guys? The last season was only like 7 months ago, 8 months ago. Is your memory that short? People get crazy. Under 9.5 wins for the Denver Broncos, minus 110 at BetMGM. They're going to take a little bit of a step back. I don't think they return to the playoffs. I think 9-8 kind of sounds like what they're going to do this year. Maybe 8-9. Still a tough division. Chiefs, obviously. Chargers. Raiders might be a little bit better than people expect this year. We're going to need some significant improvement from their offense if they want to return to the playoffs this year, I think. With what I think the wild card race is going to be a lot harder in the AFC this year than it was last year. That's assuming the Bengals kind of bounce back. I don't think the Broncos reach 10 wins. I'll take the under 9.5 wins for the Broncos. They're trending the right direction. Good things are happening in Denver. But I think we're all getting a little over our skis with Denver. All right, let's get back to the awards market. Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson, Defensive Player of the Year, 7-1 at FanDuel. People forget last year he went down with a season-ending injury in Week 5. Up to that point, when he got that injury, 7.5 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble. Through 4.5 weeks, basically. He was easily the front runner to win Defensive Player of the Year in a year that really no one kind of ran away with it. If he was healthy, I can say pretty confidently he was going to win the award last year. So my only question about him winning the award this year is if he can bounce back after the injury in the same form he was in last year. If he can, I think he runs away with it. 7.5 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss, a forced fumble through 4.5 games. You even come close to that for an 18-game season in terms of production, you're going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Love this bet at 7-1 at FanDuel. Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions, Defensive Player of the Year. Sticking in the NFC North, I'm going to, I think for the second year in a row now, bet the Packers to win the NFC North, plus 260. This is a value play in my opinion. Obviously, the Lions are favorites. They deserve to be favorites. This is more of, I don't believe in the Bears at all, and I certainly don't believe in the Vikings. So with that, I think it's Packers or Lions. So I think the Lions or the Packers a value at plus 260. The Bears are still rebuilding a little bit. They'll improve on last year. Can they compete for the division? I certainly don't think so. JJ McCarthy, I have zero faith in. I'll get to the Vikings in a little bit, but I don't think the Vikings are going to make the playoffs or sniff winning the division like they did last year. And that leaves the Lions, who maybe they'll be just as good this year, but it has to, it's worth noting they lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. We'll see if they can keep it up. Everyone's kind of waiting for the clock to strike midnight on Jared Goff. I don't know if it will. But even if the Lions are good, I think the Packers are going to be good enough to hang with them all the way till the end. The Packers were third in the NFL last season in net yards per play. I know I use that stat too much. I lean on it too much. But I think the Packers were a better team than their record showed last year. I think Jordan Love takes a little bit of a step forward this year. So I think the Packers are being a little bit underrated heading into this year. I like the plus 260 price point on them to win the NFC North. We'll see if they can pull it off. Another division winner, Houston Texans. Just going to keep this one pretty straightforward. If you can get plus money, and you can actually get a better price than I got on the Texans to win the AFC South. I saw a plus 115 yesterday. The Colts odds actually slightly improved in the division after naming Daniel Jones a starter. But this is still the Texans' division to lose. I think I'm out on the Jaguars. I think I'm out on Trevor Lawrence. I say that. What did I make? Okay, that's a recent development, and that's going to go against my pick for them a little bit later. I'm out on them being better than the Texans, I can say for sure. And both my bets can still win. We'll see. This training camp, I know maybe I'm overreacting to training camp. I'm not sold on Liam Cohen as a coach. I think Mike McDaniel is showing there are some guys who are just kind of meant to be offensive coordinators. I think we got a little over our skis on the analytics guy, the young, cool, hip analytics head coach. I think Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan warped our opinion of those, and then Liam Cohen getting a job probably a little too early, Mike McDaniel getting a job as a head coach a little too early. And then Dan Campbell has kind of been the anti that. He's the old school coach. I think the best situation to have is to have a Dan Campbell, a guy who can lead men, who can motivate, and who can also put the right coordinators in the right spots and let them do their thing. I don't think the move is a young upstart offensive coordinator, let him take over as head coach, and that's what we have in Jacksonville. But we're talking about the Texans here, who are still going to be a step below the elite teams in the AFC. They're not going to be good enough to beat the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs come in the playoffs. But I still think they are well ahead of the Titans, well ahead of the Jaguars, well ahead of the Colts. I'm surprised it's plus money, so I think there's value in the Texans to win the AFC South. Plus 110, I go to the DraftKings. I believe it's plus 115 now, or at least there is a plus 115 out there. AFC South, though, I am going to take the over on the win total for the Indianapolis Colts. 7.5 minus 110. They finished 8-9 last year. So let me defend this pick. They finished 8-9 last year. So if they have the same record as they did last season, this bet wins. They're 16th in net yards per play. They're actually pretty solid. I think the Colts were a definition of an average team last year. And while Daniel Jones might not have the ceiling of an Anthony Richardson, he has a higher floor. He's going to help them beat the teams they should beat. He's not going to be able to play well enough to beat the elite teams, to beat the good teams, but he can lead the Colts to 8 wins this season. They have a relatively weak schedule. They have some easy games in their division, obviously. It's not one I feel strong about, but I am going to take the Colts over 7.5 wins, -110 at FanDuel. I'm now seeing, in hindsight, that some of these picks are not correlated. Because now I'm also going to take the Jaguars over 7.5 wins. And I might, we'll see later, but I think I also might have the Titans over their wins. So, listen, I'm no pro. I've never said I was a pro bettor. Sometimes I do stupid things. I might have taken the Texans to win the AFC South, and then for every other team in the division to go over their win total. Let me see my Titans bet. I'll get to it later. Yeah. So perfect. So Texans to win the AFC South, and then for every other team in the division to go over their win total. I'm sure that'll happen. But on the opposite side of things, if I bet them all to go over the win total, they can't all go under. Right? Can I just split these bets 50-50? I'm more out on the Jaguars than I was when I made these bets 3 weeks ago. We'll see. What the hell is Trevor Lawrence? And this is why I got to this, because I switched my opinion on him every single day. I don't believe in Liam Cohen necessarily, but he still might be the best head coach that Trevor Lawrence has had, at least an offensive coach. Travis Hunter will be interesting. I mean, they got some weapons offensively. Brian Thomas, obviously one of the better receivers in the league after his rookie season last year. We're just asking for 8 wins. Can both the Colts and Jaguars go 8-10? Or 8-9? Probably not, but I bet you one of them will. I don't know. The AFC South is a shit show. We're not asking a lot for Trevor Lawrence to get 8 wins, are we? Come on, Trev. I like him. He's a nice guy. I interviewed him once. He was very nice, very kind. I want him to be the guy he was supposed to be. I'll take over 7.5 wins on the Jaguars. The Chiefs. I am going to be fading the Chiefs this season, but not when it comes to my preseason bet, my future. Because this is the year that everyone else is down on the Chiefs. The Chargers are going to win the AFC West, people are saying. Broncos are going to win the AFC West. I don't think the Chiefs sniffed the number 1 seed in the AFC. But you're giving me -115 odds on the Chiefs to win the division for the 10th straight year. I'm going to take that. That's at FanDuel. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender this year. I think they're a significant step below the Ravens and the Bills. I know they turn it on when they get to the playoffs all the time. I think they really benefited from getting the number 1 seed last year. I think if they don't get the number 1 seed last year, they don't make the Super Bowl. We saw them get exploited by a much more complete team of the Eagles. They didn't do enough this offseason to make me think we're going to see a better version of the Chiefs this year, but I still think they win the AFC West. They still have Patrick Mahomes. They still have Andy Reid. The Chargers and Broncos aren't quite there. They're still half a step below the Chiefs. Remember, the Chiefs the past handful of years were like -300, -400 to win the AFC West. People are down on them enough and high enough on the other teams in the division. They're down to -115. I'll zig while other people zag. I think they win a 10th straight division title and then lose in the playoffs. That's what I see for the Chiefs this year. And I think they can do it at, 10 wins might be enough. 11 wins might be enough. 11-6 is probably going to be enough for the Chiefs to win the AFC West this year, and that's the kind of season I see for them. I'll take it at the -115 price point. All right, we're going to keep things going here with the Raiders. I'm going to go with the player prop for the Raiders. I'm going to take Geno Smith to go over his passing yards total, 3,575.5 yards at FanDuel. Let me double check this just because I'm scared with the Caleb Williams one later being so much over. I want to take a second look at these player props. Geno Smith, 3,600. I got him at 3,575. Only 25 yards higher than what I bet of that. So I still like it at the new number. I think this is some Geno Smith disrespect, to be completely honest with you. This is a guy who last season, he's actually eclipsed 4,200 yards in 2 of his 3 seasons with the Seahawks. In 2023, he missed 2 games. He still reached 3,624, which is still over his set total for 2025. I get he's with the Raiders. I get he probably doesn't have the weapons that he had in Seattle. He doesn't have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN the past 2 years. But he has Jacoby Myers. He has Brock Bowers, who might just be already the best tight end in the NFL. They have a couple of rookie receivers who we'll see what we can get from them. But I don't really see a world where the Raiders are going to bench Geno Smith unless he's terrible this season. He's probably going to be good enough to win them enough games that he'll stay as the starter. So unless he gets benched or hurt, or his production takes a significant dip, once again, 2 of the last 3 years, he reached 4,200 yards. And now for 2025, his total's 3,575, or at the most latest number, 3,600. That's 600 yards less than what he got last year, more than 600 yards less than what he got last year. I think that's a little bit of some Geno Smith disrespect. In terms of player props, this is probably one of my favorite ones for 2025 for season-long player props. So Raiders, Geno Smith over 3,575 yards, passing yards, or the 3,600 is the new number. Next up, we got the 2 LA teams, starting with the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I placed this bet, obviously, 3 weeks ago, as I keep mentioning. Since then, they've lost their starting tackle and left tackle in Rashawn Slater, but I still like this bet. The Chargers' odds actually haven't budged too much since that injury. I'm going to take them to make the playoffs at minus 124. At FanDuel. I still think the AFC is extremely top-heavy with the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens, and then maybe the Texans, but really the Texans are pretty comparable to the Chargers. I think there are actually only a few actual competitors for wildcard spots in the AFC. The Bengals probably being the top one. I think the Broncos are going to take a step back, like I said earlier. The Steelers will probably be in the mix, but I don't really think they're a big threat for the wildcard race. I think the AFC and NFC are kind of opposites. I think AFC have the real top elite teams, but they don't have as tight of a race for a wild card spot. I think the NFC is the opposite. I think the NFC has the Eagles, maybe the Lions as kind of the top dogs, but then the wild card race is tough. You got the Commanders, you got the Rams, you got the Packers, you got maybe the Bears and Vikings, you got maybe the Falcons. You got the Cowboys maybe if they kind of bounce back this year. You got the Seahawks. You got the wild card race in the NFC's tough. There's no really, really bad teams in the NFC outside of maybe the Giants and Saints. The AFC, the wild card race is wide open, and even without Rashawn Slater, I still think the Chargers are good enough to slot into one of those wild card spots. And maybe, I know I bet on the Chiefs to win the AFC West, but maybe the Chargers can take a step forward and steal the division crown, stop the Chiefs' division streak at 9 years. Either way, this bet would win. So minus 124 is, I think, a pretty good bet for the Rams to return, the Chargers to return to the playoffs. The other LA team, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm low on the Rams this year. Very low on the Rams. You can take them to miss the playoffs, a plus 140. Obviously, the most compelling case is Matt Stafford's back, who I very much enjoy the recent hashtag that Stafford died a few weeks ago or whatever the hashtag is, that this is a clone of Matt Stafford because he's back practicing. But realistically, he has a bad back, not good for a guy of his age, who already we're seeing his numbers drop. I know the Rams won the NFC West last year, but Stafford last season ranked just 16th in EPA plus completion percentage over expected. I think the team overperformed. They finished 19th in net yards per play at minus 0.2. I don't think the Rams are nearly as good as a lot of people are giving them credit for. I still think they have a lot of issues on defense. They have improved there for sure, but I do think they have some issues on defense, and I don't think they have a quarterback that can lead them to the playoffs. Even if Matt Stafford plays, his production has fallen off the past 2 years, and now he's dealing with a bad back. I'd be shocked if he stays healthy the entire season, and if he misses any time at all, I certainly don't have faith in Jimmy Garoppolo leading them to the postseason. So plus 140, I think this is a pretty good bet on the Rams to miss the playoffs. There's also some teams in the NFC that I think can steal that. I think the Falcons are certainly one of those teams that can steal a wild card spot. The Cowboys, I think they're going to be good enough they can steal a wild card spot. So wild card spots are going to be tough. And I think the 49ers win the NFC West. So I will take the Rams to miss the playoffs at plus 140. Dolphins are kind of a similar team to the Jaguars to me, where I've kind of been bouncing back and forth on them. I did bet on them, a few weeks ago on them to go over 8.5 wins at plus 165. What version of the Dolphins are we going to see? I was very high on the Dolphins 2 years ago when they were very good. I was high on them last year. They did not live up to those expectations. But I'm higher on Tua than a lot of other people are. I think he's a good quarterback. He's not elite, but I think he's a good and can be great quarterback. Don't forget, he only played in 11 games last season. They still went 8-9. So if Tua stays healthy, if he can play all 17 games, they only need to improve by 1 win to hit this total compared to last year. Now, Tyreek Hill, I think, is past his prime, but still, man, they got some playmakers. They got speed on offense. We'll see if they can improve defensively. We'll see if Mike McDaniel has control of the locker room. That might be my biggest issue, is I don't know how much the players respect Mike McDaniel, which is a real problem. Like I said earlier, it goes back to the conversation I was talking about earlier, where I think there might be some coaches that are just meant to be offensive coordinators, at least for now, at least until they get a little bit older and a little bit more experienced. And can demand that respect. I think he's too buddy-buddy with these players, and that's unfortunately a tough way to run a team as a head coach, because their players will just walk all over you. With that being said, I think they have enough talent. I think, like I said earlier, the kind of that mid-tier of the AFC is kind of wide open. I'll take the Dolphins to go over 8.5 wins at plus 165. A little bit of a dark horse pick. I think their normal win total is 7.5, so I went 1 win above that. I said I'm low on the Rams. Another team I'm low on in the NFC, the Vikings. They might be I think the Rams, in my opinion, were number 1 of my most fraudulent teams heading in the season based on how they compare actually to their public perception. I think the Vikings might be number 2. Why is everyone all of a sudden just assuming J.J. McCarthy is a great NFL quarterback? People did not like him heading into the draft. People thought he was a product of being on a really good team and surrounded by a lot of really good players in Michigan. When he got drafted, a lot of people thought the Vikings, that was a reach on J.J. McCarthy. And then last year he had one bad start in the preseason, then got hurt. He missed the entire year. Now here we are a year later, and he hasn't played a single snap in the NFL yet in a regular season game, but yet people are just assuming he's going to be a good quarterback. I don't understand what happened over the past year for people's opinion to be swayed, because nothing has happened. He's still the same guy. I'm not buying it. I'm not falling for the J.J. McCarthy propaganda. Now, I know the argument. The argument is he's in a very good situation. Some people are taking that so far. Some people are saying that he's in the best situation a quarterback's entered in, or a similar situation to Patrick Mahomes. Let's relax. I know Justin Jefferson's very good. I know a lot of people like Kevin O'Connell. I know Jordan Addison's a pretty solid number 2 once he returns from his suspension. I know the Vikings had a very, very good defense last year too, but I don't think J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback based on what I saw from him in college. Based on what I saw, what I saw from in the the one preseason game, based on some reports from training camp, I just don't think he's going to be the guy. He might be all right eventually, but we're getting minus 110 odds, coin flip odds on them to miss the playoffs and what's going to be an extremely competitive NFC and what's going to be an extremely competitive NFC North. I think they overperformed last year. And I think the last few games of the season, when they got exposed by Detroit, I think they finally regressed to the mean. They regressed to where they were supposed to be. I think they take a significant step back this year, and I think J.J. McCarthy does not have a good season. I'm out on J.J. McCarthy. I am out on the Minnesota Vikings. I will bet on them to miss the playoffs at minus 110. The Patriots, another team a lot of people are high on. Their win total has shot up. And now I bet it at 8.5. I think it was 7.5 before. Maybe even 6.5. But I'm going to take the under on the Patriots win total at 8.5. under 8.5 wins at plus 100. Don't get me wrong. They're taking steps in the right direction. I do like the Mike Vrabel hiring. I think he's a very good coach, obviously. I think the Titans made a mistake firing him. I think Drake May, similar to Bo Nix, had a very good rookie season. But he's not elite yet. He's not a guy that can drag a team to the playoffs. And the weapons they have offensively, although I'm very high on the rookie Travion Henderson, I'm very high on him. But the receiving core, a washed Stephon Diggs is like their best receiver. They didn't really do enough in the offseason outside of hiring Mike Vrabel for me to think that this is going to be a team that can get to 9 wins. I think 9 wins is a stretch. I think they get to 7, maybe even 8. I think 9 wins is a stretch for this Patriots team this year, especially 2 games against the Bills. They do have one of the more easiest schedules, but I don't think they're a team that you can automatically pencil in a win no matter who they play. Step in the right direction. They won't be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, but I think 9 wins is a bit too far. I'll take under 8.5 wins at even money on the Patriots. The Saints, not a lot of different ways I could have gone with the Saints. So I went with a offensive rookie of the year pick, which is not looking good as of right now because it looks like Spencer Rattler might be their starter, is the more likely option to be their starter. But I did bet Tyler Shaw. Do we have a consensus on how this guy's name is pronounced yet? Is it Shaw, Schaff, Shuck? I've heard all those variations. I still don't know because everyone's like, whenever I hear someone talk about it, they're like, oh yeah, it's Shuck. No, it's Shuck. We asked, it's Shuck. And then someone else be like, yeah, it's Schaff. Yeah, he told us it's Schaff. I don't know for sure yet. Regardless, there's only one quarterback in the NFL who's a rookie who's going to get the starting job from week 1. That's obviously Cam Ward. So and I didn't even spell it right here. I spell it Shosh. Schaff. Shough. If he does start early, maybe he doesn't start week 1, but if he starts by like week 3, I mean, there's not a ton of options, especially a quarterback to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Maybe he gets it done. I mean, he has some weapons. He's got Chris Olave. He's got Alvin Kamara. At 12-1, I think it's worth a look, and I really think it's the only way to bet on the Saints because the Saints win total is already low enough. I wouldn't bet the under on an already low win total. They're not making the playoffs. They're not doing anything else. You may as well bet on this. Tyler Schaff. I think it's Schaff. That's what I'm going to go with. Offensive Rookie of the Year, 12-1. For the Giants, we're also going to go Rookie of the Year. We're going to go Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going to take the favorite. This is a little bit of a square bet, obviously. I'm going to take Abdul Carter, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I just think, don't forget, heading into the draft, he was by far the best or highly touted defensive player in the draft. There's a reason why he was taken as the first defensive player off the board. If you want a dark horse, I actually think the Falcons' second pass rusher, James Pierce Jr., based on reports coming out of camp and preseason, he's kind of the guy over Jalen Walker. At least looks like he could be year 1. And I think he's like 16-1, 18-1. But I think Abdul Carter is the obvious pick. Now, since I've placed his bet, he did get pancaked twice by Jets offensive lineman, which is not good in week 2 of the preseason. I think you keep this one pretty straightforward. I think there's a reason he's the favorite. Don't overthink it. And much like, the Saints, there's not a lot of ways that you can bet on the Giants this year. I think they're going to suck a lot. Jackson Dart could be interesting. Maybe an Offensive Rookie of the Year bet on Jackson Dart, but they're probably going to keep Wilson around until like week 6. So I don't know if he'll have enough time to win that. I'll go Abdul Carter, Defensive Rookie of the Year, plus 250. The Jets. I'm going to take the under on the Jets win total. Under 5.5 wins, plus 135 at DraftKings for the Jets. There is a bet. I don't think it exists anywhere, but if you can find it, I would love it. And this is a recent development. Is there a bet on just Jets overall team rush attempts? Because they might run the ball every play this year. It's going to be hilarious. They ran the ball every play one game against the Giants in the preseason. Aaron Glenn, based on his press conference answers, seems like he's going to run the ball a ton. He got mad at a reporter saying it's not a pass-first league. I mean, and he referenced the Eagles, who obviously are a bit more of a run-first team, winning the Super Bowl this past year. He's talked about how he wants to use all 3 running backs. Justin Fields, he's talked about how good his running ability is. they might run an Army style of offense in the NFL this year, which would be very fun. If they do that, the Jets games might become one of my favorite games to watch, just because I mean, even the Eagles had the highest run play rate last year, and I still think it was like 54%. Like, it was only slightly over 50%. I would love to see what happens if an NFL team runs the ball 80% of the time. That'd be crazy. 70% of the time would be crazy. The Jets might do it. With that being said, they got nothing. Justin Fields. Garrett Wilson, obviously, at receiver. Breece Hall, at running back. But, like, their defense fell off a cliff after Robert Salah was fired. So what version of their defense is going to show up this year? I think the Jets are going to suck. 6 wins. Them getting to 6 wins, it seems like a major stretch to me. So I'll take under 5.5 wins, especially a plus 135. Pretty good price point there, too. Eagles, we're keeping it easy with the Eagles. I think the Eagles win the NFC again this year. Now, earlier I shit on members of the sports media who don't have hot takes, but I can't have a hot take about every bet. Sometimes, and I've fallen for that trap, I've fallen where every single bet is a hot take. There's no hot take about the Eagles. They are the best team in the NFC, and it's not close. Now, similar to the Bills and the Ravens, I'm not taking the Eagles to be the number 1 seed. I think San Francisco should be that team because they have by far the easiest schedule in the NFL. But the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. They're returning almost everyone from last year. Their offensive line is unbelievable. Their defense is unbelievable. Jalen Hurts is extremely underrated somehow as a quarterback. Why is it like when a quarterback doesn't win a Super Bowl, it's his fault, but then when like Jalen Hurts wins a Super Bowl, it's because of everyone around him? Like, I don't understand that logic. You know, do the Eagles need him to throw for 300 yards a game to win? No, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't. You know, and he's shown up in big moments is when he's had his best performances. A team that can run the ball as effectively as they can, throw the ball when they need to, play extremely good defense. I think the Eagles are a step above everyone else in the NFC. Now, if they get to the Super Bowl and they have to face a Buffalo Bills or Baltimore Ravens, who knows? That's why I'm not taking them to win the Super Bowl, but I think they have a very clear path to representing the NFC in the Super Bowl for the second straight year. So I'm going to take them to win the NFC at plus 370. Steelers, I'm going to take them over 8.5 wins, actually. As a guy who has historically not liked the Steelers, I'm not going to doubt Mike Tomlin anymore. So basically, this is just a bet on Mike Tomlin to once again have a winning season, for him to reach 9 wins. I think Aaron Rodgers is actually going to have a little bit of a better season than people think. My reason for that belief is I think the Achilles injury took a lot out of him, because the best version of Aaron Rodgers we saw last year was in the last 4 weeks of the season. Now, no one knows that because once they were out of the playoffs by then and no one really cared. But if you go back and even look at the box scores of that, Aaron Rodgers' best performances were late in the year. I hope that means that he didn't really feel healthy, or he at least didn't find his flow again until the end of the year. Now, he's not going to be MVP candidate. The Steelers aren't going to be a Super Bowl contender. But I think they can go 9-8. I think Tomlin will drag them to that spot again. I mean, they've gone 9-8 with much worse quarterbacks. I think they can get there with Aaron Rodgers if he stays healthy. I'm done doubting Mike Tomlin. Can he win a Super Bowl for a second time? You know, can he lead a team to being, the best team in the AFC? I don't know. They need a different roster, but he can sure as hell drag a team to a 9-8 record. I'll tell you that. Moving on, we got the 49ers. I thought my bet was on the 49ers to be the number 1 seed. It's not. My bet is just on them to win the NFC West. So that is my official pick. But if you want to bet something else for the 49ers at a little bit longer odds, I like them to be the number 1 seed. They have by far the easiest division in the NFL. Let me bring this up here. The 49ers this season play 4 games. 4 out of their 17 games are against teams who were in the playoffs last year. 2 games against the Rams, 1 against the Buccaneers, and 1 against the Texans. So it's not even 4 games against really good playoff teams. That's 4 games against, 2 teams that were one and done in the playoffs, and one team. Actually, the Rams won a game, didn't they? Yeah, they beat who they beat? They beat someone in the first game. But still, this is not the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles. They get to play the Rams twice, the Buccaneers, and the Texans. And then on their schedule is the Saints, the Browns, the Titans, the Giants, the Panthers, the Colts. They finished last place in the NFC West last year in a season where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And now they get to play a fourth place schedule, and they're benefiting from that in a huge way. Now, they might still not be as good as the Lions or the Eagles, but like I said earlier when talking about the Bills, number 1 seed depends so much on schedule. And unless the NFL just gets turned on its head, I don't see a world where they don't have the easiest schedule in the league. So they could be, a decent team and still finish with 12, 13 wins. And don't forget, last year, even though they missed the playoffs, even though they finished last place in the division, they were still second in the NFL in net yards per play. They had injuries. They had poor variance late in games. I've never seen a season where everything could have went wrong like the 49ers suffered last year. I think they bounced back in a big way. I have them to win the NFC West. I also think they'll be the number 1 seed in the NFC. Seahawks, I'm going with a player prop for the Seahawks. I'm going with Jackson Smith-Njigba, JSN, over 950.5 receiving yards. Last year, he had 1,130 receiving yards, and that was with a receiving room that included DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now, both those players are out of Seattle, so JSN is the clear number 1 option in Seattle, so he's likely to get the majority of targets. But yet his receiving yards total is down almost 200 yards. 170 yards lower than it was last season when he was playing with a crowded receiving room. Now, I know Sam Darnold is going to be the quarterback. He's kind of a wash. He's kind of the same as Geno Smith, so I don't think that's going to hurt him. I don't know why his receiving yards total is below 1,000 yards. I'd be shocked if he doesn't reach 1,000 yards this year. So Jackson Smith-Njigba over 950 receiving yards. That's at -110 at DraftKings. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going to take Baker Mayfield, 4,000 plus passing yards. So for him to reach 4,000 passing yards, that is available at +125 at DraftKings. He has done nothing but succeed since joining the Buccaneers. He has eclipsed 4,000 yards in both seasons with the Buccaneers. Why would he not get 4,000 yards this year? I know Liam Cohen is gone, his offensive coordinator is gone, but Josh Grizzard takes over. He was the team's passing coordinator last year, so I actually don't think that's a step back at all for Baker. He's got Mike Evans. Chris Godwin will be back at some point. They added Emeka Obuku, I believe his name is, the receiver that they drafted in the first round. So they added even more weapons. Bucky Irving's going to take some pressure off him. He had a fantastic season last year at running back. How in the world does Baker Mayfield not get 4,000 yards again this year if he got it the past 2 years? And this is at plus money, +125. This might be actually my best bet of the entire season. Baker Mayfield to get 4,000 pass yards. Unless he gets hurt, I don't know how he doesn't reach this number. I hate that it's the Buccaneers and a chunk of those yards are going to come against the Falcons, but come on. 2 games against the Falcons secondary, 2 games against the Saints, 2 games against the Panthers secondary. Oh, man. He might get 4,000 yards in the division. This is my best bet of the entire season. Lock it in. Titans. We got 2 picks left. Titans, I'm back on the Titans. I'm back on my shit. I'm back on my bullshit. If you remember last year, I was a believer in the Titans heading into the season. I kept betting them. Their numbers were better than their record showed. I kept betting them. I said, hey, there's no way that a team is going to finish with only 2 wins against the spread all season. The large majority of time, we see regression to the mean. These teams end up going on a hot run to the end of the season against the spread. Not the case for the Titans. They had the worst spread record in NFL history. I still think, I'm still dying on that take. I still think they're a better team than their record last year. Their special teams and Will Levis turnovers completely screwed them out of like 5 or 6 wins. Maybe not that many. But they should have at least had 3 or 4 more wins. At least. So let's hope they fix their special teams. Yeah, they were 21st in net yards per play. They had a better net yards per play last season than the Chiefs. But that obviously goes to show why net yards per play isn't everything. Because everything in those games that would go wrong for the Titans would go right for the Chiefs. They're complete opposite ends of the spectrum last season. But a lot of their underlying metrics are actually very similar. Now, they're not going to be a playoff team. They're not going to win the division. I like Cam Ward a lot. I like what I've heard from him in camp. He seems like a professional. He seems like he works hard. I've read nothing but good things. I've seen nothing but good things from him. I think Cam Ward's going to have a pretty solid year. I think 6 wins. They just got to go 6-11 and this bet wins. I like that a lot. I'll go Titans over 5.5 wins at -130. I'm going to take the Washington Commanders, who end off the episode here, to miss the playoffs this season at +130. This is going to be a not popular pick. People are not going to like this pick. But I think the Washington Commanders take a significant step back. I think we are in almost an identical situation to what we were in 2 years ago with the Texans. You remember the Texans and C.J. Stroud's first year. He had a historic year as a rookie quarterback. He led the Texans to the playoffs. A lot of people heading into last season were betting on C.J. Stroud to win MVP, for the Texans to have a big season. Now, the Texans still managed to win the division last year, but they did not take the step forward that people expected after C.J. Stroud's first year. Actually, they took a small step backward. I think the Commanders are going to do a very similar thing. I think it is near impossible for the Commanders, based on their roster, to even match last year's record, let alone improve on last year's record. I don't think they did enough to add to their defense, a defense which was one of the worst in the NFL last year. I don't think they got enough weapons for Jaden Daniels. And as good as Jaden Daniels, I think as good as of quarterbacks I think he is, dragging this team back to the playoffs, especially in the NFC East, they don't have the benefit of playing in the AFC South like CJ Stroud and the Texans did in his second year. They're a very good young team. They're a team that's taking a step forward, but I think last year, I think they got over their skis a little bit. I think they overperformed last year, and now this year they're going to come crashing back down to earth. I think they'll be in the wild card race mix. I think they just miss out on the wild card race. But I do think they're taking the right steps. You know, maybe if they build the roster a little bit more next offseason, they'll get back to the playoffs next year. But I think the expectations are a little too high for this team heading into this year based on last year's, 19-game sample size, which is a small sample size. 19-game sample size. It's a small sample size of games. I think they overperformed. I think they won a lot of games late. The Hail Mary against the Bears, the big comeback against the Eagles after Jalen Hurts got hurt. Take those two wins away. Are you looking at this team the exact same way as you are now? I don't think so. I think they miss the playoffs this year. I think it's a good bet at +130. So there you have it. 32 teams, 32 futures bets for the 2025 NFL season. This has been my season preview. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and get ready for the upcoming season. I'm recording this on August 20th, so we are 2 weeks away from being the day before opening NFL kickoff. You'll hear from me next the week of week 1. I got to do a little bit more preparation the rest of this week and next week. And then week 1 of the NFL season, I'll be full bore, both with my show with Sports Illustrated and with the Road to 272. So, yeah, the next time you hear me will be week 1 of the Road to 272 bets. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Good luck with your futures bets. Let me know in the comments your favorite futures bet for this season. I will tail a few of them as long as they aren't the opposite end of my bets. Good luck, and let's get ready. Hey, sleep well, because once the football season starts, sleep is for the weak. Get your sleep in now. It's almost time for the opening kickoff. Let's go.